We've spent a lot of time explaining how dangerous intersections are. Now let's turn our attention to the positive. What can you do to make intersections safer? How can you minimize distractions and reduce the other risk to get through them safely?
Well, it begins by understanding what can go wrong. That way you can prevent accidents from happening in the first place. Remember, other drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists might not see you and they might cut you off. Or they might see you, realize that you have the right of way, and still cut you off.
Well, if I've learned one thing for sure, it's that you can't assume that others will obey the rules. Sooner or later, somebody's going to cut in front of you.
That's right. They often try to dart ahead at an intersection because they don't like to get stuck behind the bus. You have to be really careful to look around and leave room. That extra little bit of space gives you time to react to the mistakes of others.
As you approach any intersection, slow down gradually, cover your brake, and be ready to stop. Be aware of what's happening all around your bus. Use the look-around defensive driving technique and keep changing your focus. Look ahead into the intersection and beyond. And long before you get to the intersection, you should be looking as far as you can see in either direction of the intersecting street. You don't want any surprises. And, we say again, never rush. As you approach the intersection, watch for crossing vehicles that aren't slowing down or stopping when they should, sudden starts and stops from other vehicles, sudden lane changing or vehicles passing you or others, tailgating by other vehicles, vehicles that are turning either from the road you're on or from the intersecting street, pedestrians who might try to hurry and catch the tail end of a walk signal, bicyclists in and around the intersection, and motorcyclists, especially coming at you on the intersecting street.
If you're approaching an intersection with a traffic light, take note. Obviously, it'll be red, yellow, or green, and red means stop. But for the professional operator, yellow also means stop. You should always be ready to stop.
And that goes for a stale green light as well.
I know this. A stale green light means it's been green for a while. In fact, it probably turned green before you even saw it. That means it's likely to change before you can get safely through the intersection.
That's correct. When approaching a stale green light, assume that it's about to change. Slow down and cover your brake. That will give you enough time to safely and smoothly stop if the light suddenly turns.
Now, as you approach an intersection, be sure to position your bus early to avoid any last-second lane changes. Look ahead and take note of any directional signs or lane markers. Get in the correct lane ahead of time before the line turns solid. Never cross over a solid line and never change lanes when you're going through an intersection. If you plan on turning, signal your intentions early with at least 5 flashes of your indicator.
If I do have to come to a stop at an intersection, are there any markers or lines to show me exactly where I should be?
You should stop 5 feet behind the limit line so your bus is not in a crosswalk. If there's no line, then stop well before the crosswalk or sidewalk edge. If there's no crosswalk or sidewalk, then stop before the imaginary line extending from the stop sign. At uncontrolled intersections with no signs, use an imaginary line about 15 to 20 feet back from the edge of the intersecting street. Be sure to leave a cushion of space in front of you. If you're not the first one stopping at the intersection, stop far enough back so you can see the rear tires of the vehicle in front of you touching the ground.
Now let's talk about fresh green lights.
Let me guess. That's one that I saw turn green while I was sitting there or approaching it.
Now you're catching on. But a green light only means that it's your turn to go, not necessarily that it's safe to go. Green may be legal, but it's not always safe. A fresh green light tells you there's enough time to get through the intersection, but you still have to look left, right, straight, and left again, in case someone is trying to run the red light on the crossing street. A good rule is to avoid being the first one into the intersection after the light turns green. Wait a few seconds and look left, right, left before you take off.
And that'll help you establish a good following distance as well. And remember, as a professional, you have to allow for the mistakes of the others, and they will make them. Last but certainly not least, you have to watch for pedestrians and bicyclists. This is so important. There's a whole other program devoted just to this subject. But for now, let's cover the highlights.
Preventing accidents with pedestrians is all about visibility. You need to see them, and they need to see you. That's where the LLC defensive driving techniques come in handy. Look ahead and look around are your two best strategies for seeing pedestrians, even when they show up where they don't belong. And to improve the look around visibility, rock and roll so you see around the roof pillars and any mirrors.
Also, communicate your intentions using your signals and a friendly tap of the horn, when necessary, to get their attention. And of course, leave room on all sides of your bus. That extra space gives you a little more time to react to any surprises and avoid a collision.
And always use the rock and roll procedure at intersections. It makes your look around defensive driving technique 10 times better. Rock and roll means you rock your body to the left and right and forward and backward so you can see around all the blind spots. It's the most important thing you can do to prevent pedestrian collisions. Never lose sight of any pedestrians while sitting at the intersection, and always check your side mirrors to see down the sides of the vehicles before moving.
Do it while you're waiting for your turn to go, and do it again halfway through your turn. The rock and roll procedure helps you do a better job of look around. Turn slowly, no more than 3 to 5 miles per hour, and keep scanning the area for pedestrians. By going slowly, if you see a pedestrian at the last second, you'll have time to stop.